But for now, I want to talk to you about social mobility. Here in this country, it is at its worst that it's been in about half a century. This is the Institute for Fiscal Studies. It's basically found that people growing up in the north of England and the Midlands, as well as those from a minority ethnic background, would find it a lot harder to become wealthier than their parents. What do you think to this, Michael?
Yeah, so it's not just people in the north of England and people of ethnic minorities. It's basically everyone is going to find it harder to find themselves in a higher decile than their parents than would have been the case previously. Now, a number of reasons for this. So I suppose one sort of changes in the job market. It's sort of harder to get into a job at a bottom level and then just keep getting promoted. I think you have sort of the nature of the job market just changes that. I think property is a huge thing here, though, because it's the case that even if now you know, against all odds, you do really well at school, even though you're from a very poor background. Then against all odds, you do really well at university because you're from a poor background. Then you get a decent job. Your salary, even if it's OK, even if it's a sort of respectable salary, it would be dwarfed by your friend who happened to inherit a house in London, right? Because house prices are so high that a house, you know, a normal house. I mean, my parents' house in East London, sort of 2 up, 2 down, is probably, you know, worth over £500,000, right?
This isn't just a London thing, the property thing. I mean, it is insane and out of control in London, but I would say right across the country, properties now are going up massively. I know in Hull, where I'm from, if I look at the property prices there, I don't know, say 10 years ago or whatever, compared to now, there's been huge growth. Yeah,
and it's super unhealthy. I mean, we should live in a society whereby your standard of living comes from the work you do, not the wealth you have. And I think at the moment the situation we have is that if you are sitting on wealth, that wealth will accrue more and more wealth, you know, in interest and then in just the fact that house prices are rising. And what that means is that, you know, however aspirational you are, you go and get a job, which is already very difficult to do if you're from a working class background, and then still you find yourself...
to get a job from a working class background?
No, sorry, a high-paid job, let's say. Right. It's not actually difficult for anyone to get a job now, really, because unemployment is so low. But it's very difficult to get a well-paid job because wages have been stagnating for about 20 years. But if you want to go into a well-paid job, then still that will be dwarfed by the inheritance of a colleague who happens to have wealthy parents who own a house.
Well, another report that ignores the elephant in the room, and that is white working class boys especially at the bottom of the pile. They have been for over 20 straight years. They're the least likely demographic of any in Britain to attend university. They start at reception behind and they never catch up. And once more, their preponderance to live in communities affected by mass immigration is another elephant in the room. The Brexit referendum was a vote on this. It was a vote for people who can't afford to go to university, who feel that Britain isn't working for them. They feel trapped. They can't have the education that costs £50,000 in total. And furthermore, the low-skilled jobs that they're leaving school equipped to be employed in, they never received any help. There's not a single initiative anywhere in Britain to help these people from those communities. And then they find themselves competing with immigrant labour for minimum wage. Net 606,000 come into the UK, flooding this market. We have criminal levels of underemployed, not in education, young men. 19, 25-year-old lads are now 2.5 times more likely to be out of work than young women. An extra 56,000. This is a total group of 237 young men aged 18 to 24 not in work or education, festering, forgotten, left behind and betrayed. And they never have a voice in politics. It's always about ethnic minorities. It's always about women being left behind. The data is the data. They've been left behind. Brexit was meant to be their chance to have a say. And what's happened ever since is they've tried to squash that vote. Social mobility is expensive. These people can't afford to even get on the ladder.
Now, I mean, I think you're doing, the wealthy are just a massive favour here by blaming this on migration, right? Now, if you look at where people from working class backgrounds are most likely to succeed, whatever race they're from, it's London, right? The most multicultural part of the country. So the idea that immigration is what's stopping people's
how do you afford to move to London if you're from Hull or Wigan or Mansfield?
You're misunderstanding my point. My point is not you should just move to London. My point is that there is no evidence whatsoever that the reason that social mobility is declining is because of migration. The reason social mobility is declining is because of a concentration of wealth among the very wealthy, and the fact that our economy is based much more on the value of your house and your wealth than it is about the work that you do.
There's an oversupply of cheap labour and a huge demand for housing, which pushes up the prices, all of which leaves those with the least education never getting out of that whirlpool.
Do you think you can ever change your class? Or, so, for example, working class, I think working class is such a... I find it like a badge of honour, and I think it's like it's to me like I know it's going to sound a bit strange, but like it's like a presentation of like goodness. When I see working class people, I think, oh, they're like decent, salt of the earth, decent people. Do you think that when you earn more, you come out of a working class background? Because I don't. I think it's an attitude set and a value set.
I think it is, and I also think it's a case of like just not forgetting that and not forgetting where you come from. You know, you don't get that kind of snobbery amongst the working classes who've made it, I find. Because you remember the hard times and you've tasted the pain, so you enjoy the champagne. It's that sort of mentality. Whereas people with a more entitled attitude who often despise the working classes, see them as an anomaly. We saw this with the Labour Party. Now, the Labour Party was built on the working classes, foundationed on their votes, completely betrayed by the left. And that is why they ended up voting for the Conservative Party in areas of the country we never, ever thought would go Conservative, because they were abandoned by the left. And part of that is the cancer of identity politics, which decided that these people have no social currency, they have no grievance because they're white, they're male, they're privileged, suck it up. And so they don't get any help and they're trapped at the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I just think it's a bit of a shame that we're talking about a report which showed that social mobility is at an all-time low. It's worse if you're non-white, right? It's worse if you're living outside of London.
The
reason here... Well, no, I mean, the report here is that it's... I think something you've done there, which is a little bit dishonest, is you've got black people, Asian people, white people, but then you've switched... You've divided the white people between middle class and working class.
Well, because that is the metric
but what about,
of their successful failure.
Are the white working class any less likely to succeed than the black working class?
Yes.
Than the black working class? Because you haven't... No, because the data you're using, does it distinguish between working class and middle class black people? Unless it does, that's a bad study,
No, it's not. If you look at people on free school meals, that's the metric used in every way of appraising. White working class people, particularly boys from the same socio-economic backgrounds, fare worse in education than any ethnic minority. Fact.
Well, there you go. We like facts.